Welcome to the Derek Creason Show. This is episode 16. Coming up on today's show, we've got recent life updates. I'll talk about what I've been up to the last month or two. We'll have movie reviews. For new movies, we'll talk Transformers 1 and The Union, starring Mark Wahlberg and Halle Berry. And for old movies, we'll talk Die Hard 2 and Gone in 60 Seconds. For music, I'll talk about the Seether concert I went to a couple nights ago. We'll talk about faith, talk about what I've been learning lately, and share some cool blessings that's been going on in my life. And then we'll also talk about news and current events, including Hurricane Helene and Iran shooting missiles at Israel. As always, I welcome your feedback, your questions, your suggestions, etc. Derek at derekcreason.com is the email address. You can get in touch with me at derekcreason on X, Instagram, YouTube, and Rumble. Head over to my website, derekcreason.com, for all the latest updates. Sign up for my newsletter there so you can stay up to date with what's going on. I send emails about once a month, if that. And lastly, my book, 20-something, is available on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle or paperback. Links are all over my social media pages. Amazon has their program on sale for 3 months for free right now. You can get a 3-month trial, so you can read the book for completely free if you want to go do that. So go over there, Amazon, check it out. Just type in my name, Derek Creason, or 20-something in the search bar, and you'll find it. Welcome, everybody. Today is Friday, October 4th for this episode. So, recent life updates. What have I been up to lately? My last episode was in July 20th. I just looked, so a little over 2 months ago. A little slow on getting some new episodes out. Sometimes that happens. Life gets busy. And sometimes I just don't have creative inspiration. So, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to do it. So, until I get paid to do it daily or something, you'll get it when you get it. So, here's new stuff for you to enjoy. So, what have I been up to since 2 months ago? Well, we're coming up on 5 months. 6 months of my shoulder surgery. It was back in April. 5 months out, my shoulder is finally starting to make some good progress. I have noticed in the last 2 or 3 weeks that my range of motion has finally gotten opened up a lot. Still has a little bit of ways to go, and I have been able to start strengthening some of the smaller muscles in different parts of my shoulder that have been holding me back. And so it's been nice to finally make some noticeable progress, and I'm very happy with that. Also, along with that, I have been doing yoga ever since my surgery, after about 2 weeks after that. And then I've been doing healthy eating for about 3 months, and also been lifting weights for 2 months. And all of those things combined have just been helping. I don't want to talk specific numbers yet. I'm still working towards some specific goals, but I have made noticeable progress in all of my numbers, whether that's weight loss or lifting or all that kind of stuff. But mainly the thing that's working the most is just being consistent and then giving myself flexibility. So flexibly consistent. If I lift weights 3 times a week, I do yoga 2 to 3 times a week, and I eat healthy 5 to 6 days out of the week. And then sometimes on the weekends, I'll eat a little bit of extra snacks or junk food. And I don't feel like I'm having to strenuously diet, and I'm continuously losing weight every month. And so that is all working. I'll talk more about that in the future sometime. But if you got questions, hit me up. I'd love to tell you some of my strategies and some of the meal prep stuff that I do. So that's what I've been doing for a while now, for 3 months. We're starting on month number 4. I've got a little calendar I hang up in my bathroom, and I'll mark off check marks of consistency. That kind of helps me out and keep me going. Let's see, the kids went back to school in August. I got kids at 3 different schools this year. We've got kids in 10th grade, 8th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade this year. Let's see, last month Caroline turned 10, so we had fun celebrating her. Earlier this week, Jackson got hit by a car on his bicycle, so that was very stressful. He is completely okay. It was a very slow and minor thing at a crosswalk. The car just didn't see him and tried to turn right when it was his turn to go across the crosswalk. So luckily he's only got some scrapes and bruises, and his bike's a little dinged up, but he's doing fine. It was really just more stressful and scary to hear about it through a text message and later. So we're working through some of that stuff, but everything's fine. But yeah, definitely scary when something you have no control over happens to one of your kids. Let's see, earlier this week, I went to a concert with my friend. I'll talk about that in the music segment. Went and saw Seether and Skillet. That was a good show. We'll talk about that coming up. A couple weeks ago, Amy went up to Chicago. She went and saw Avril Lavigne in concert and got to hang out with a friend for a day or two. So that was a cool trip for her. And then also, since my last episode on here, I started another podcast or YouTube show with my brother about wrestling. So me and my brother are big wrestling fans. We used to watch it a lot when we were growing up. Then we both stopped watching it for years and years. And then these last few years, I've really gotten back into watching wrestling. And it's a good reason for us to get together and watch the pay-per-views for both WWE and AEW, and we'll record our predictions and we'll keep track of them, and then after the show we'll record it and talk about it and what was our thoughts and impressions. We'll rank them, which was the best match of the night, and we'll see who picked the most matches right and keep score, and it's just a fun thing to do. And that's on YouTube and Spotify and Pocket Cast and all those places. It's at Wrestling Brothers Breakdown. If you want to go find it on YouTube, I'll have links to it here on this show as well. You can find links to it on my social as well. So we've got 6 or 7, 8 episodes up, and hopefully we can get one done in the next day or so before the next pay-per-view coming up this weekend. If not, that's life. Sometimes it just happens that way. So those are some of the things that have been going on with me recently, and hopefully it won't be another 2 months before the next episode. Let me know if you want to hear more about any of that. Are you craving more of the Derek Creason Show? Come join my locals community and become an insider. It's free. It's like a VIP backstage pass. Inside the community, you'll get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else, including behind-the-scenes secrets, my unfiltered takes on the latest news and pop culture, and even sneak peeks at upcoming projects. You'll also get a look into my creative process, as well as new ways to interact, connect, and engage with me and the show community. Plus, supporters will get bonus episodes not available to the public. It's all about supporting the show and building an awesome community. So go to the derekcreasonshow.locals.com and become an insider today and get tons of free content that you won't get anywhere else. All right, let's jump into the show. All right, let's talk movies. First up is Transformers 1. This is a prequel movie, rated PG, and it's actually an animated movie. And some of those things, I'm usually not a big fan of prequels, and I'm usually not a big fan of animated movies because I have 4 kids, and I probably end up seeing all the animated movies thousands of times over and over and over again. But this one I actually ended up liking a lot. Transformers 1 was the origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron. And this is how they came to know each other and started off being best friends, and eventually how they fell apart. So there's actually a really well done story. I liked it a lot. Megatron, you see his fall from grace and how he turns evil pretty quickly. And then also Optimus Prime, he was voiced by Chris Hemsworth, which I wasn't a big fan of. I didn't understand that voice casting. But then towards the end of the movie, as he's becoming Optimus Prime and becoming the leader, his voice starts changing and like he's growing up, and it starts to sound like the original voice actor's name, Peter. I forget his last name now. All of a sudden, I'm drawing a blank. But there's also Brian Tyree Henry and Scarlett Johansson voices in it well. So this is just all a well-done animated movie. I liked it. Here we'll do a quick short clip from it.
What is that?
Sending location coordinates. Under attack!
An SOS message from the surface.
Fantastic!
It's time to show them we are more than meets the eye.
More than meets the eye. So I won't do too much longer than that. Don't want to get no copyright strikes from whoever owns it, Paramount or whoever. Anyways, I liked it a lot. I would give it 4 buckets of popcorn. All right, next up is The Union. This is a spy action movie, PG-13. It's got Mark Wahlberg and Halle Berry in it. I watched it on Peacock. That's where I found it. And it looked interesting enough. Or no, it was on Netflix. Sorry, my bad, Netflix. And this was Halle Berry works for some made-up spy agency and then recruits Mark Wahlberg because he's a blue-collar guy and just helps get stuff done. And very normal, cliche action spy movie with not too much spy and not too much violence in it. For a PG-13 movie, is just a nice little entertaining action comedy. Exactly what you'd expect it to be. I enjoyed it. I would give it 3 buckets of popcorn. It was okay. All right, I've been watching some old movies as well. So I've been going through the old Die Hard movies with my oldest son, Jackson, and he's been enjoying those. And it's been nice, fun to see how the 80s and early 90s action movies compare to action movies from today. So we have just recently watched Die Hard 2, and I really enjoyed it. This one still stands up pretty well. I liked it a lot. I like Bruce Willis's, John McClane's one-liners, lots of quips and one-liners. Some of the cinematography or the choices of like when there was a dummy, some of the special effects are a tad dated in techniques, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it was 1990 when this movie came out. And so I saw it was pretty well done how they did all the fake snow for the airport. This was the classic Die Hard movie with the airport and all the double crossing and just action. Lots of one-liners. I forgot how much language was in it. Some of that was kind of funny to hear how people cursed in the 90s, but whatever. So always a classic. Die Hard 2. I love it. You love it. I would give it 5 buckets of popcorn because it is great. Like most of the Die Hard movies. Not all of them, but most of them. All right, and lastly, another rewatch that the other day I thought about something and thought about some random fast car, and that reminded me, hey, I have that movie Gone in 60 Seconds, which I had not watched in a long time. So I went and looked it up and found it, and I watched it a couple days ago. So this was a classic 2000s movie. I think it was made in actually the year 2000. Nicolas Cage, Angelina Jolie. The trailer's kind of goofy. Some of the trailer stuff is dated. If you go back and look at trailers from the 90s or 80s, it's how trailers are made today is totally different. But this movie was just another action comedy type thing. They got to steal 50 cars in one night to save his brother's life, and you've probably seen it before, but it's a good time. It still holds up fairly well for being 24 years old. I enjoyed it. It's entertaining. I would give it 4 buckets of popcorn for being good. So that will do it for movies today. All right, let's talk TV shows. So, first up on TV shows, I mentioned this a couple months ago on my podcast. It's something I was looking forward to. The TV series Shogun. This is the remake of a miniseries from the 70s, I think, and it was on FX. I finally got around to watching it. I think I watched it on Hulu, and this was 10 episodes, and it's all in Japanese with a little bit of English, and so there's a little bit of reading, but I honestly did not mind that. This was freaking amazing show. I loved it. I like samurai and Japanese history and culture type stuff anyways. It's just fascinating to me. All the duty, the honor, loyalty, the code of honor that they live by, Bushido, all that stuff. I always find it interesting. I've watched some documentaries on Japan during the feudal times and how they had different warlords and stuff. And this is a fictionalized telling of some of that, but it's very interesting to see how things played out in that culture with the politics, with the action, with the same kind of things that you would go through today, but all within a different culture. So it's all brand new and different, and I really liked it. There's the story of the Englishman who gets stranded there, and he works his way up through their system and kind of befriends the warlord guy, Lord Toranaga, who secretly wants to be Shogun, but doesn't even admit that, not even until like the last 5 seconds of the series. I think they're going to do a season 2, which would be super interesting. This show just won a ton of Emmys. The show actually came out back in February, March timeframe of 2024. It just took me a while to get around to watching it. If you like just a good drama that's just really well done, the acting was phenomenal, the cinematography was awesome. I think it was shot up in Canada, but it looked like Japan. It looked awesome. All of the fighting was good. A little bit of violence and gore with some swords. And anytime they have to commit seppuku, however you pronounce it, like when they commit suicide and then have somebody chop their head off. So there's a little bit of that. But overall, just really well done, really well acted, really interesting show. I greatly enjoyed it. If you like anything like samurai and Japanese action stuff, go check it out. It's a really well done show. I don't know if I do buckets of popcorn on TV shows, but if I did, this would be great. It'd be five stars, 5 buckets of popcorn. It was great. Next up for TV shows is the Mr. McMahon documentary out on Netflix. This came out last week on Netflix. It was a 6-episode series, and this was a documentary put together over the last 4 years about Mr. McMahon. If you don't know him, he's been in charge of the WWE for 40 years. He's been a big wrestling character. He's been an entertainer, promoter, the guy who owned it all, built the company up into $1 billion industry, kind of made wrestling what it is today. But also, documentary covers, for all the good things he's done for wrestling, he also has a very dark history and past, and he's done a lot of, allegedly, and he's paid out a lot of lawsuits around sexual harassment and eventually having to leave the company and resign all his positions in the new company that when they got built and bought together. If you're a wrestling fan or a mark like me, not a ton of new information. You've already known most of this from things that you've seen in other documentaries or news that you read, or just being in knowing what's going on in the wrestling industry. Not a ton of new information, but it's still very well done, well put together documentary. It tells the story of wrestling kind of through the 80s and the 90s and 2000s up to today. So there's a lot of generic wrestling history in there that's always interesting to know and refresh if you haven't been exposed to any of that. A lot of interesting stories, a lot of crushing, sad stories along the way. So yeah, it was very entertaining. I liked it. So I would say if you like wrestling at all and want to know more about it or enjoy anything related to that, it's an interesting documentary. You'll probably like it. All right, next up, this is my treadmill show. So usually every day I try to get 8,000 steps, and if I haven't got that in by the end of the day in the evening, I will usually go hop up on the treadmill and just turn on a show on my phone and watch, and I'll walk for anywhere from 10 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on how much steps I need to make up for the day. And this is just one of those shows that I can just kind of put on and chug through episodes. It's entertaining to me. I like medical dramas, but if I don't watch it for 6 months, I'm fine too. So I just like watching Chicago Med. I'm on like season 8. So I think that's the latest season. I think there's a new one starting. I don't know. But entertaining. I like it. Sometimes cliche and silly, but I like it. All right, last up on TV shows is The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. So season 2 just started back in August, and I think the last episode just aired a couple days ago. I finally got around to starting this yesterday or the day before, maybe. It's been on my list of shows to watch. I liked the first season pretty good, even though it got mediocre reviews. And the first part of this first episode was a little confusing, but it all started to make sense. And I went and read an article to kind of refresh and remember what all happened in season 1. And it picked up right where it left off, and it's going, and I like it. I really like The Lord of the Rings anyways. This is just expanding that universe, and I think it's really well done, and the actors are doing a great job. And so I'm excited to finish the rest of this season and see where it goes. So I like it, and it's on Amazon Prime, so go check that one out. All right, that's going to do it for TV shows today. All right, let's talk music. So, first up, have you heard the new Linkin Park singer and all the controversy that they're getting about that? Some people love her, some people hate her. What do you think? I listened to, a video on TikTok of all places, and it was like the hour-long concert that they did up in Chicago, I want to say. Anyways, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I thought she did an excellent job singing, and I grew up on Linkin Park in late high school, early college, and a lot of that music really resonates with me, and so to hear it played live again, it was just very cool. I was very affected and upset when Chester Bennington killed himself back in the day. I remember actually writing about that in my book. If you haven't read it, I talk about it in my chapter on emotions and how that stuff affected me. So, have you heard the new single that's out by them? They got a new album coming out with the new singer. And I think it's kind of cool that they found a way to kind of just morph and adapt and move on and do some neat, cool things. Other things going on in music. A couple nights ago, I went to a show. I love going to live music, rock bands. And I went with my buddy Wes, who's actually an active listener to my podcast. Shout out to Wes. Thanks for listening to this and enjoying it. We went and saw Skillet and Seether, which is kind of a random combination with Skillet being a Christian band and Seether not being a Christian band. But it was actually a really good show. I enjoyed it a lot. Not too many S bands. Skillet put on a really good show. They had a ton of flashing light things that were just really super bright, and part of their stage things went up and down, and so that was kind of neat to see. And I knew 3 or 4 of their songs, so that was good to see. And then the main band was Seether, which I've seen once before, quite a few years ago. I've always liked them. Somewhat cliche radio rock, but I don't care. I like cliche radio rock. And they're a band from South Africa. And I don't think they've got a new album out anytime recently, but it was a good time and a good show. And I've actually got a clip here that I've from my phone I took. I'll try to show it to you. See what you think. Check out that awesome camera work there. Pretty decent singer. Here comes the chorus. It's gonna get louder. Lights come up and go. Lots of cool stuff. All right, so there you go. That is a clip from the show. It actually sounds pretty decent for an iPhone recording. I'm surprised when I go back and listen to it that it actually sounds pretty good. So the cameras keep getting better and better on these phone things that we got. So that's what we got for today in music news. Love live music, rock and roll, rock music, metal. Can't wait to see the next show. I'll always go see a live band when I can. It's always a good time. So that's all we got today for music news. All right, let's talk news. First up, one of the big obvious stories that's going on is Hurricane Helene and the aftermath and recovery from that. I don't know if you know much about it, or maybe you don't live in that part of the country and it's not a big thing on your radar, but just seeing some of the videos on TikTok and pictures on Twitter and Instagram, it looks like they have just been devastated down there. And it seems like there are a lot of political stories going on. I don't know how much truth there is to any of them. So any of these stories that I'm going to mention, I always say go do your own research. Go fact check it yourself. There are reports coming out that FEMA has run out of money to help pay for the disaster relief, their federal funds. There's also other reports saying that they squandered those funds and used them to help settle illegal immigrants with illegal immigration and some of those programs that they're running through. There are reports that people can get $750 from FEMA if they fill out a link. There's reports you can get other money. Some say there's not other money. There are people who are using that as clickbaity titles to kind of say, like, look, we just gave Ukraine another $63 billion or something stupid like that, and we're giving Americans $750. So, and while that may be kind of clickbaity, it is a valid kind of point to bring up that we do seem to care more about other things than our own people. It does seem from the stories that I'm seeing, seem like that the federal emergency stuff response has been slow to get there, almost a week later, and then there's been a lot of just organizations doing it on their own and helping people that have already been there for a week, and then the FEMA people are causing them problems, saying, hey, you have to move out, we're going to arrest you, they're just causing problems with bureaucracy. I don't know how much all of that is true or not. Here, I'll just share my screen. This is on Twitter. I just put in the search term FEMA, and then you can just scroll through all the stories. It says FEMA blocking and seizing Starlink shipments. I don't know if that's true or not. I do know that they've tried to give out a lot of Starlink and make it free to help people with communications. Here's some more pictures of devastation. Here's supposedly some whistleblower stuff about misappropriated funds. You know, here's somebody saying they've got sources for that. FEMA is blocking shipments, blah, blah. I don't know. A lot of this, there's always multiple layers and 2 to 5 sides of every story. But, or if we'll just type in Hurricane Helene and see what comes up. Here's people hiking in supplies to help people. There's a ton of people still trapped up in the mountains. Some of these pictures are just insane out there. And so despite all that, all these political stories about the government's doing this good or the government's doing that bad or this place is good or bad or these people are scamming these people, there are a ton of organizations out there to help. So whether you love the government, hate the government, don't expect them to be super efficient and or always have your best interest at heart. We can hope that they will, and sometimes that they'll do good and show up, but a lot of it's going to be up to regular people going in and helping people and just caring and loving on people. There are a lot of organizations out there that you can donate to help if you're not able to go yourself. I know my church just sent a team this last week down to Louisiana to help with the Southern Baptist disaster relief. There is Convoy of Hope. There is Red Cross, Samaritan's Purse. I just donated some money to an organization called Save Our Allies, and they help with interpreters in Afghanistan, but then they're also doing local helicopter missions and flying in and getting people that are stuck. And so there are tons of organizations out there that you can donate to help out people who may or may not be able to get federal help and stuff. So that's just kind of some of the stuff going on with the hurricane. All right, next up in the news is, you may have saw this a couple days ago, Iran shot missiles at Israel. So Israel has been fighting Hamas and Hezbollah up in Lebanon. They killed a bunch of top-level people in those terrorist organizations, and Iran was very mad about that since they're the leading state sponsor of terrorists in the world. And so Iran launched, at one point I thought I heard like 400, but it sounds like it was 160-ish missiles and rockets at Israel. Some did get through the Iron Dome, but it sounds like most of them failed and were shot down and blocked. And so it looks like Israel's going to respond. They'll probably target some stuff. Some of the neocons are just itching for another war. I cannot fathom and understand that. I don't wish war upon anyone, especially since I'm in the army and then I have to go. If that happens, I'm not interested in World War III at all. I do think Israel has the right to protect itself. I think Iran is being dumb. But what do you think about it? What do you think will happen? Do you think people behind the scenes are playing games? Do you think the news is being manipulated? I don't know. Do you think we're trying to be pushed into World War III for reasons unknown? I'm not sure. But unfortunately, a lot of bad things happen in the world, and a lot of bad people use that to their advantage to push their own gains, push whatever they want forward. So that's been happening in the news, been keeping an eye on it. It's been ongoing. I think the Middle East is forever going to be under turmoil until the end of times. I don't know how much we can do about it. Having been there, I'm not a huge fan of it. I've been to Kuwait and Jordan, and there's a lot of poor and poverty there. There's a lot of money there in the oil, but if you're not in the right classes or the right people or the royalty, there are some very poor living conditions over in some of those countries, and I wouldn't wish some of that hard life on anybody. So as far as the Middle East is concerned, you can keep it. I'd rather go live in Colorado or somewhere much nicer. So that is going to do it for the news today. All right, next up is faith. I haven't used this intro yet, or this category very often yet since I switched to video. I do talk about my faith, not as much as maybe as I probably should, but I do profess to be a Bible-believing Christian, and I don't live that super out loud on my sleeve in my life, but I do sometimes, and the people who know me know that I believe that, and I go to church, and I try my best to live as a Christian and do what the Bible says. I am a human being, though, and I fail at that often. I have my struggles just like anybody else does. But I wanted to talk about in this faith segment is I've had some cool things happen lately. One of the things that I started doing earlier when I mentioned I've been consistent with like habits of exercising and eating healthy is I started getting up 1 hour earlier at 6 o'clock every morning to go do my workouts down in the basement or do yoga in front of the TV. And when instead of sleeping until 7 and getting up to get the kids up and do a normal day-to-day morning routine, and doing that has allowed me, most of the times I'll finish my workouts around 6:50, 6:55, and then I'll go get kids up around 7:05, 7:10 to get up and start their day, is I'll go to my desk, and right here on my desk, I keep it open, is my Bible. And I started back in August, about 2.5, 3 months ago. I was like, I really need to work on this habit. You know, it's one of the things you're supposed to do every day. And to be honest, it's something I've struggled with on and off over the years, is the consistency of that. But I realized, you know what? I usually end up sitting at my desk some point of the day for 5 minutes, whether it's a work from home day where I sit here a lot, or if it's a not work from home day, I will still usually end up stopping by my desk to check an email or something almost every day. And so I have my Bible sitting here now open, and when I'll finish those workouts in the morning, I will come up here and eat my breakfast or my protein drink or whatever, and I will sit and read my Bible for 5 to 10 minutes. And also sometimes at night before I go to bed. But I've been hitting it every single morning for the past 2.5, 3 months, and that has greatly affected a lot of things. It has affected my attitude, how I feel, what I'm learning. I'm remembering things throughout the day. I'm like, oh yeah, this says that about that, or oh, why I'm struggling with this. Oh, that was referenced just a little bit ago. I started in Romans a couple months ago, and I'm all the way up to 1 Peter now. So I should have my way through most of the New Testament here in the next month or so. And I've actually really enjoyed it, and it's starting to be consistent enough that the habit is good, and I can tell if I forget a day, I need to go do that. I haven't, spent time and try to focus on that at the beginning of the day. I'm really liking putting the focus on it at the beginning of the day because it just kind of helps set the mood or the mindset and reminds me of what is really ultimately important, more important, in the eternal sense of things versus, logistics. I got to get gas today. I got to get kids to school or practice, or I got to do this for work or that, and just all the kind of day-to-day busyness that comes up. And so would challenge you, find a way to make it an easy 5-minute habit and just do it for a couple months and see how you start to see the results of that infect your thinking. And yeah, I said infect, but it's a positive thing. So I would challenge you to do that. The other cool thing that happened, I mentioned some blessings, is that about 2 weeks ago, my youngest child, Benjamin, he is 7, almost 8 years old. He has been asking lots of questions the last few months, and he had come up, and it was bedtime, and I was tucking him in, and he was asking me about baptism, and I was explaining what baptism was and what it meant, and how that was for people who had accepted Jesus into their heart and had a personal relationship with him. And he was very interested in doing that, and I got to lead him in prayer and him asking Jesus into his heart. And that was just so randomly unexpected, and it was such a very cool thing. It was very humbling. It was very emotional for me to get to experience that blessing. I really enjoyed it. For all my faults and mistakes in life, I have at least tried to point my family and my children to God. And I try to take them to church as much as possible to do this and learn from the Bible and other people where I might fall short sometimes. And God has seen fit that all 4 of my children have made a profession of faith in Christ. And so that has been something I've prayed about for many years throughout their lives as they've grown up. And it's just been awesome to get to see that come to fruition, the blessings from that. Now my goal is to teach them and help them learn and grow and to be the best Christians, to live for Jesus that they can, and to do better than I have, and so that they can be loving, caring, awesome human beings in this world who can lead others to Jesus and also just be nice human beings to other people in the world. There's definitely a shortage of that out there. And so it's been really cool to experience that. We've got his baptism scheduled coming up here in a few weeks. I'm excited for that he will get to share that with people. He's been very excited. We've been doing devotions most every night with him. He really has a heart for Jesus and is on fire for him. And it's just exciting to hear him say, hey, I want to tell my friends about this. I want to do this. And just he's learning and he's understanding it, and it makes sense to him, and he's living it. And so that has just been one of the coolest things to get to experience. And I'm beyond grateful that despite all the ups and downs in life, that blessing has been given to me and my family from God. So that is one of the coolest things probably ever that I'll talk about on this podcast, is the grace and mercy that God provides that I'm still learning to understand it over time, and that God does answer prayer when you pray for people. And so I will continue to pray for other people to come to know him, and that God would use me in some small way to, whether that be from this podcast or the short chapter in my book about it, to show them the love that Jesus has, and be able to try to be there for them if they have questions and provide them a route to that. So that's what's been going on with faith stuff lately. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. I want to say thank you for listening and watching and hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed the show, please let me know. Send me your feedback. I always appreciate it. Derek@derekcreason.com is the email address where you can send me all that feedback. At Derek Creason on X, Instagram, YouTube, and Rumble. If you want to hit me up on social, go to my website, derekcreason.com, for the latest updates. You can sign up for my newsletter there. I'll email you once in a blue moon about what's going on. Go by Amazon.com. Look up 20-something, my book. It's available on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle or paperback. I got links all over my social media page, or you can just go to Amazon and type in my name, Derek Creason, or 20-something in the search bar, and it'll show up. It looks like this. So go check that out. All right, The Derek Creason Show. You love the show, now get exclusive access. Become an insider in my locals community. It's like having a front row seat. You'll get behind-the-scenes secrets, unfiltered takes on news and pop culture, sneak peeks at upcoming projects, and members-only bonus episodes. Plus, you connect with me directly and see how the creative process of the show comes together. So come support the show and let's build an awesome community. Visit thederekcreasonshow.locals.com and become an insider today. All right, that's going to do it for today, guys. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast wherever you found it. We're on all the major podcasting platforms. Like and share to your heart's content. I will see you guys on the next episode. Later.